The twin suns of Zereth Prime bled orange light across a broken horizon. The once majestic capital of the Valyrian Empire now stood as a maze of shattered spires and smoking hangars. Between the ruins, slaves worked in silence, cleaning wreckage from the last Great War. Among them moved Kael, a human soldier captured years ago when Earth fell to the Empire. Once he'd been a captain of the Terran Vanguard. Now he was property, his military insignia burned off his skin and replaced with an ownership brand that glowed faintly whenever his overseer called. Kael's world had shrunk to the metallic corridors of Docking Bay 9, the domain of Commander Sorexa Varn, the Empire's undefeated fleet champion. She was beautiful in that cold, cruel way Valyrians were known for, tall, silver-haired, with eyes like molten mercury. Her armor was a masterpiece of war, a biomechanical extension of her body that fused technology and nerve. And Kael, a man once proud enough to lead battalions, now polished her armor's boots. Every evening, Sorexa would pass by him without even a glance. Sometimes, though, she'd pause, as if sensing his defiance, and sneer. "You're just a slave, human. Remember that." Kael would lower his gaze and nod, but inside he memorized every contour of her armor, every sequence of activation codes. He was learning in silence, waiting, though for what, he didn't yet know. War came again, sooner than anyone expected. The Threx Dominion, a race of insectoid warriors from the Outer Rim, launched a full-scale invasion, determined to crush the weakened Empire. When the red alarm lights bathed the city, Sorexa stood in her command hall, encased in her shimmering red armor. "Prepare my fleet," she barked, and her officers scrambled. She turned toward Kael one last time. "Keep my hangar ready. If I return, you will kneel before me as the savior of your species." Kael's reply was steady. "If you return." Her silver eyes narrowed. "You dare." He met her gaze. "I just hope you do." Moments later, her thrusters ignited, and she vanished into the sky. Hours passed. Then came the fire. The horizon burned blue and black as debris fell from orbit. Kael and other slaves watched from the domes as flaming wrecks screamed down like meteors. One crashed only miles away. Without orders, Kael ran toward the wreckage through the ash-filled air. Inside the twisted hull, amid torn cables and hissing hydraulics, he found her, Sorexa, trapped beneath her armor, bleeding but alive. Her once pristine face was streaked with soot. She tried to push him away. "Don't touch me, human." He ignored her, prying open the armor's locks. "You'll die if I don't. I'd rather die than owe my life to a slave." Kael met her eyes, voice low, then died proud. Something flickered in her gaze. Fear, perhaps, or the sudden realization that pride meant nothing to the dying. She let him lift her free. Her armor lay broken, useless. Kael carried her through smoke and falling debris back to the medical wing. She passed out before they arrived. When Sorexa awoke days later, she was alive, but forever changed. The neural connectors in her spine were damaged. She could never interface with her champion armor again. The Empire's War Council replaced her with another pilot, younger, ruthless, arrogant. To them, she was a relic. Her pride shattered. For the first time, she was powerless. And the slave who saved her, the human she despised, still worked quietly in her shadow. "You think this makes you my equal?" she hissed one night when he brought her data reports. "You're still nothing." Kael's reply was soft but firm. "Then let me be nothing that saved someone who mattered." Her fury faltered. She looked away, her voice low. "I didn't ask to be saved." "No one ever does," he said. Weeks later, the Threx returned. This time, they came not for battle, but for annihilation. Massive carriers blotted out the stars. Cities burned within minutes. The Empire's fleets were scattered, its champions dead or fled. And in the central hangar of the fallen capital stood the armor of Sorexa Varn, the once glorious symbol of empire, abandoned, forgotten, but still functional. Kael entered the hangar at midnight. The air smelled of ozone and decay. He stood before the armor that had once been his tormentor's weapon. The interface lights flickered weakly. He touched the chest plate, whispering the same activation phrase he'd heard Sorexa use 100 times. Varn Protocol, awaken. The armor responded. Neural cords shot out like serpents, piercing his spine and skull. Pain flooded him, but he didn't stop. His blood filled the connectors, and for a heartbeat, the armor resisted, then accepted. The system synchronized. His vision expanded. He could see the energy patterns of the entire hangar, hear the pulse of distant engines. The armor was alive, and now it was his. Kael stepped forward, and the ground shook. Guards rushed in, weapons drawn. "Stop him!" shouted an officer. But before they could fire, Kael's armor shield flared, deflecting the blasts. His voice boomed through the comms. "I was a slave. Now I am your shield." And then he was gone, launching into the stormlit sky. The threat's fleet met him head-on. Their warships spat plasma fire, their living hulls shrieking as he tore through them like a crimson comet. Kael's movements were instinctive, almost divine. Each strike carried the rage of every human enslaved, every world burned. Inside command posts, Valyrian officers stared in disbelief. The armor of Sorexa Varn, the undefeated champion, was fighting again, but the pilot was human. "Who is he?" one officer whispered. Sorexa watched the live feed from her bed. Her breath caught. "Kael." For hours, he fought until the last of the Threx fell in burning fragments. The twin suns rose again, lighting the wreckage of victory. Kael landed on a shattered plaza, armor cracked and glowing red from heat. Soldiers and slaves alike surrounded him in silence. Then Sorexa appeared, limping, her silver eyes filled with something unfamiliar. Respect. "You piloted my armor," she said softly. Kael removed his helmet. "Your armor needed a warrior." Her lips trembled. "You broke every law of the Empire." "I saved your people," he replied. The Empire Council demanded his arrest. A human wearing the sacred champion's armor was blasphemy. They called Sorexa to deliver the execution order herself. That night, she found him in the same hangar where it all began. He stood by the armor, stripped of power, ready. She raised her pistol, her hands shaking. "They said if I don't kill you, they'll kill us both." Kael's gaze didn't waver. "Then shoot. But understand this, I didn't fight for them. I fought for something you've never known." "And what's that?" she asked. "Freedom." Her hand trembled. Then she lowered the weapon. "The Empire will brand us traitors." He smiled faintly. "Let them try." When asked how their story began, Kael would simply smile and say, "With a sneer and a choice." And though the stars had seen countless wars and countless conquerors, none shone brighter than the man who rose from chains to wear the armor of his master, not to rule, but to free.